Duke's Archives looks distinctly different from the rest of the game, and the 2 armored boars are a fun introduction to the area. Things go bad quickly right after this because, once again, there's an elevator right at the bonfire that you need to call down after every time you die. This time there isn't even a pressure plate to easily send it down after you go up. This area up here can be a grinder for new players. The hollows can surround you and do a lot of damage. It's still fine, however, because you've seen these attack animations before and it's similar to the scenarios found in Undeadburg. Continuing forward, you climb the stairs and discover that the area is quite small. There's another elevator that leads to a narrow corridor and, much sooner than expected, a fog door. After entering, you're already face to face with Seath. There are few sins greater that a game, movie, or book can commit than breaking the rules that it itself has established. It's lazy and undermines the entire experience. Everything from that point onward becomes unstable. If it was done once, then why not do it again? Why invest yourself in anything when it can change at any moment? Dark Souls breaks more than one of its own rules in this first Seath encounter. In fact, it breaks so many that I don't even know where to start. So let's try chronologically. Dying here is unavoidable. When you come back to life, you have magically been moved to a different bonfire. The whole point of the Darkside Curse is that you return to the last bonfire you rested at upon death. It's a literal teleport that happens within the game's world and is not the typical meta respawn that other games utilize. When a boss kills you in Dark Souls multiple times, it remembers. If Seath has killed you 5 times, Seath knows that he's killed you 5 times. In this encounter, you have somehow been trapped instead of being sent back to the last bonfire. You're locked in a prison cell. You have all of your items and equipment. You've been captured but not stripped of your stuff. You've also been plopped next to a new bonfire, all of which are strange if being captured is really what's happened here. If you try to use a homeward bone, you're teleported back to this room. You then have to light the bonfire. The homeward bone specifically says it'll teleport you to the last bonfire you rested at, yet the game thinks you've just rested at this one before you've even had a chance to light it. Let's keep going. There's a snake man on the other side of the prison bars. He only has 1 HP. That's another rule broken. The real kicker, and the only thing that makes me legitimately angry with the game, is that you kill him by attacking through the bars. After deliberately preventing you from attacking through solid objects the whole game, this time the game explicitly allows and even wants you to strike through a solid barrier. And for what? What enjoyable gameplay is gained by doing all of this? If you truly are imprisoned here, you get out within seconds. It's the laziest attempt at holding someone ever. You keep all of your items. What you don't keep, however, are your souls and humanity. The final broken rule here is the most insidious. When I got to this part on my first playthrough, I didn't know that Seath was unbeatable. I thought that I had simply died to a new boss and that this prison section was a creative penalty. After fighting my way out, I immediately tried to find a way back to Seath's same room, and then this happens. He kills you again, and you're sent back to the bonfire. Only this time you can be cursed. He's still in that room. He still looks and acts like a boss. He still has a health bar. Like there's some trick you didn't realize that's necessary to damaging him. The bosses in the game are built around the whole idea of pitting you against some seemingly impossible, initially insurmountable monstrosity that you eventually overcome. The Asylum Demon itself is the best example of this. It's introduced to the player so early that I think most people think that they're not supposed to kill it. You run away, and it's like, okay, well, this is what I was meant to do. Like, there's no way the game expects me to kill this. And then the Asylum loops back into it, and no, you do have to kill it. That's one of the first lessons that the game teaches you. But here, with Seath, it's a trick. You can never kill him here. You're supposed to find another way. Yet the game still puts your bloodstain in that room. It's a core mechanic and one that is reinforced over the entire game. Get back to your bloodstain and try again. Keep at it. Whatever humanity and souls you were carrying when you get there are forfeit, I guess. In order to retrieve them, you need to either get back to the boss room and be quick enough to grab them and then homeward bone, or you need to clear the entire prison tower without dying. then explore the archives without dying, get down the crystal cave without dying, and then kill Seath on your first try, and then get back to his room to your bloodstain without dying. This is next to impossible for new players and a slap in the face for those who have amassed a high amount of humanity through careful play up to this point. The archives themselves are frustrating for melee builds. The casters and hollow archers will pound you as you explore, and I think it's important to remember how confusing this area can be on your first time through. Adding insult to injury, when you finally do safely get into melee range with one of the sorcerers, they teleport away as a final fuck you. Again, if the design necessitates range attacks in this way, it should have been better incorporated into the Asylum section of the game. There's even a crystal archer hanging out in this room that you simply cannot kill without a ranged attack. I don't even know how he got there. Crystal caves, like the other ones that focus on a gimmick, is a waste of an area. You need to be a ranged character in order to kill the butterflies. There are effectively 0 other enemies here because of the decision to make part of the walkways invisible. My guess is that the lack of visible floors made putting enemies here impossible. Either they would show the player where the safe path is to walk, or they would make combat too frustrating. The end result are invisible paths that are just straight lines that have nothing to do. This makes for an incredibly long and boring run back to the boss if you die. If the developers had forgone the idea of this gimmick, they could have built a more traditional area here instead, with challenges and shortcuts and the like, but instead we get this wasted piece of shit. A minor point, what's going on with this crystal? Look how you slip down it when you run along. This is the only way to proceed through this area. Why does this happen? The game does this sometimes and has strange ideas on what can be walkable or not. In the video playing now, I died here and I still don't know what happened. I have viewed it a dozen times. I have no idea how I died. Seath is almost okay. He moves very slowly and is so large that, once again, you're at a disadvantage if you're a pure melee build. I'm getting tired of repeating myself about this now. He's so tall that you can't actually see what moves he's queuing up when you're attacking him. You need to back away and play conservatively, or just risk it and attack wildly with a high damage weapon and hope for the best. The final area of the base game is simplicity at its best, a victory march that's both straightforward and visually interesting. The enemies aren't clumped into groups. It's a gradual gauntlet of Black Knights that, at this stage of the game, should give the player little trouble. They drop powerful weapons and items used to upgrade existing equipment. They also drop a fair amount of souls. It's a reasonable spot to farm if you find the final boss is giving you too much trouble as you are. Gwyn is a great way to end the game. There's no gimmick to this fight. It's a straight duel between the two of you, and he is aggressive enough to make it challenging. Unfortunately, the final act of Dark Souls is so marred by the previous areas that Gwyn isn't enough to elevate the game back up to the heights of the first third. It's fortunate then that the DLC is some of the best ever added to a game. This video is meant to focus on the game's shortcomings, so it's a compliment to the developers that I don't have much to say about Ulasil at all. The bosses are fantastic and follow the same theme as Gwyn, a straight duel with no gimmicks. All 4 of them are challenging without resorting to tricks or multiple enemies, and as far as I've read online, they are considered to be among the best bosses in the entire series. Calamite is my personal favorite, even though I do have to admit it's not great design to have to die to him a few times to get to the developer message before you're given enough hints that you need the giant's help in order to properly engage the boss.
Black dragon posing the duress?
The only place the DLC fails is in the Silver Pendant, both in acquiring it and its use in the Manus fight. A message on the floor gives you a clue on how to open the illusory wall, and this is so simple that it might as well have opened the thing for you. Switching the item from your Estus Flask during the Manus fight can be unwieldy, and if the boss starts spamming the magical abilities, then it can start to feel tedious. One major criticism I will lay on the DLC's presentation is how inaccessible it is. It was included in the base game for PC versions, and I'm not ashamed to admit that I didn't know it existed at all. I read as little as I could about the game until I finished it. So imagine my confusion when, after killing Gwyn, I see people online talking about how great all these other bosses are that I somehow missed. Even knowing that the areas exist isn't enough, however. The method for entering Ulasil is so specific that I now believe that From fully expects and intends for players to use online guides in order to discover things. Upgrading weapons and making new ones out of boss souls becomes tolerable after you understand this. In many ways, the final bosses of the game remind me of my first fight with the Black Knight in Undeadburg. Back then I couldn't parry to save my life and wasn't comfortable enough to stay in and backstab. This made the fight feel like an epic standoff, managing both stamina and player position in order to prevent incoming damage while still being able to counterattack. There's a distinct flow to this kind of battle, and an attack at the wrong time from either party can leave an opening for the other to get in a series of attacks and force them on the defensive. It's curious that Dark Souls doesn't repeat this kind of gameplay in the bosses until the endgame. I think it's a testament to how excellent the combat is, that a fight this early and this late can have so much in common and still be riveting. There are a few points I'd like to make that I couldn't find a way to fit smoothly into the tour of the game. Illusory walls are a fun mechanic that reward exploration and provide secrets for players to find. I have to admire From's bravery for putting substantial amounts of content in these hidden areas. There are 2 layers of illusory walls in the swamp at the bottom of Blighttown that lead to 2 completely unique areas. There's also the option to shoot Guinevere and Anor Londo, which alters the zone and leads to an optional boss.
So it was you, was it? How dare you produce a blade upon a deity? How did you ever get this far?
It never occurred to me that I could damage Guinevere, and not only does the game let you do it, it's built an entire optional scenario out of it. You can either strike with your weapon or roll through an illusory wall, except for the one in Sen's Fortress, which is the only one that you can't roll and have to hit with your sword. I don't know why that one is special. Poise and stability are 2 important stats that I think should have been better explained, especially poise. It's like an additional stat bar that depletes when taking damage and causes a stagger when it hits 0. Both the player and enemies have one, and they're hidden. Another bar may have cluttered things on the UI, but I'm not convinced it's better left invisible. The target reticule could have been useful here for enemies. It could have changed a different color as you lower their poise toward a stagger. For anyone who thinks it's unrealistic that something like this should be shown to the player, it's also unrealistic that you can see enemy health bars, but they're still in the game. Randomness can sometimes ruin the experience. A boss can spam certain powerful abilities and be more trouble than usual. Inversely, in the clip here, I was granted 3 bonus Estus charges in quick succession. I didn't need them, but if I did, I might have gone on to beat this boss only because I got those charges. I had to look up how that even happened. Apparently, if someone kindles a bonfire that you're linked to in their game, you are granted a bonus charge. In both cases, randomness can have too powerful an influence on the game. Leveling is important more for unlocking the use of equipment rather than the character's stats themselves. Until then, weapons can be too heavy for your character to wield. You can physically see this as they struggle if you equip one without the proper stats. It's strange then that other weapons, much lighter ones that are still on the heavier side, retain their stagger even now that your character is many multitudes stronger than before. You can now wield this massive sword that likely weighs more than your entire character, but this mace still has a recovery stutter. The game's controls could be better. The forward, kick, and jumping strong attack are easy to mess up. This can be especially bad with, say, the Black Knight sword. The base strong attack has one of the longest telegraphs and recovery animations in the entire game. Messing up the forward jump and doing this long attack can sometimes mean death because of the controls. Backstabbing has a similar issue. Sometimes the game just doesn't do it, even though you're behind an enemy. Then you'll be at their side and a backstab will suddenly go through. Sometimes you only want to backstab and not a regular attack, so it can be frustrating when this fails. Backstabbing occasionally feels cheap, and I often wonder if it's a good inclusion in the game at all. When you become confident with Dark Souls' combat, it's too easy to circle strafe and backstab everything that moves. I want to give a few more examples of how magic is broken and why I think it's implemented badly. In other games, magic is usually a powerful force that comes with equally extreme drawbacks. Spellcasters are either frail or have long cast times in order to balance high damage range attacks. In Dark Souls, all attacks have this commitment period, meaning that spells are functionally identical to melee swings except that they have far larger range and don't have the risk of getting hit back in return. From attempts to balance this by limiting the amount of times you can use a spell before you have to return to a bonfire to rest, but this doesn't work. If you pick Sorcerer at the start of the game, you can go down to New Londo with the souls you got from killing Asylum Demon and leave the starting area with 60 charges of Soul Arrow, which is overkill for all of the first areas. If you pick Pyromancer, you can still get the 30 charges of Soul Arrow to complement your 8 uses of Fireball. By the time you save Griggs and lower Undeadburg and Big Hat, you're swimming in spells and limited by attunement slots more than anything else. The enemies don't even seem to understand what's happening when you focus on magic. They often halt abruptly or attack empty space. The problem of multiple enemies is solved because you can keep your distance from any size group and attack safely before backing away again. There's never any danger except for losing patience. Compare this to certain group fights in the game for a melee character and, well, just look at it. This particular example is one that I never understand. 3 drakes are together. This is an enemy that can spew forth a wide lightning breath, has a tail swipe, and can snap to a quick flying dive attack. Just one set of these attacks can be random enough, but there are 3. The smart thing to do would be to lure them away one at a time, but the game has deliberately put a leash on them that makes them return to their starting spot if you drag them even just a little from where they started. This isn't even a mechanic that is default to the drakes, because you can lure the one on the bridge far away, yet the 3 across from it will turn around after only a short distance. This was intentional, so how are you supposed to kill them? You can charge in and risk dying while hoping to do enough damage before they kill you, or you can stay back and shoot them without them ever bothering to care about what's killing them. The most extreme example of this kind of group imbalance is in the Lautrec fight in Anor Londo. This battle is over the Firekeeper's soul from Firelink Shrine, which is a pretty important moment of restoration.
Thank you.
It's 3-on-1. Lautrec's attacks do damage to your shield. His 2 friends are a melee fighter and a sorcerer. If you're a magic user yourself, you can pick off one or both of these extra enemies before any of them can reach you. Or you can focus on Lautrec himself and burst him down and end the fight just like that. It's insultingly easy. As a melee character, you have to resort to cheap, cheesy tactics. Your 3 opponents will attack you together and force you to play ultra evasively. The kicker here is that you can't dart in for a moment of regression and then run away to chug an Estus charge, because healing is prohibited throughout this encounter. Your best bet is to lure them to the sides of the room and hope that they split up enough to get some free hits in. Failing that, do a suicidal charge at Lautrec and hope that you kill him before they kill you. Other issues in combat are attacks that knock you to the floor and are then followed by another attack that kills you the exact instant that you get back up. Although this is still the player's fault for being hit in the first place, the period of invincibility while you get back to your feet is meant to prevent this kind of frustration. Finally, I want to speak about the game's story, or rather I want to not speak about it. The game's characters and atmosphere are top-notch. Even though characters don't move their lips when they speak, the voice acting is pretty good too.
I am Quelana of Izalith. I am not often revealed to walkers of flesh. You have a gift.
The world of Dark Souls is infested with these people. It's the land of the laughing. The land of fat rats. The story and world make no sense, but I don't think they were trying to be.
The flow of time itself is convoluted, with heroes centuries old phasing in and out.
It's a place that's apparently been built on the backs of giant hollow trees. It's an imaginative, grim setting that I enjoy but have no illusions of there being any substance to it. I know that some people enjoy filling in the blanks for themselves, but I can't get into that. I need there to be some solid foundation, some truth that the whole game is based on, that I really don't think exists. Not even in the mind of the game's creators. It's purposefully vague because vague is what From wanted. The fog doors in the game can sometimes get your imagination going in preparation for what's on the other side. Sometimes it's a boss. Sometimes it's the next level in an area. In the case of the story, I think it's better if you never try to step through. There's nothing waiting for you on the other side. This was the first video of this type that I've ever made. I stumbled my way through learning how to edit gameplay footage and record audio, and it's probably rough in ways that I won't be able to notice until I watch it again months from now. For these reasons, thank you sincerely for watching the entire thing. Hopefully it was worth your time. My intention is to make a few more of these and to experiment with different styles of presentation. If you enjoyed this video enough to want more, you might be interested in some of the books that I've written. I'm an author and have several novels published on Amazon. There will likely be a link to them below. While I'm at it, I suppose I should shamefully plug myself on Twitter, Facebook, and to subscribe here on YouTube as well. Links should be down there too. Once again, thank you for watching.